Hey, in Fusion, if you ever go up to the sketch menu, you'll notice all these different commands. And if you do the pull downs, there's even more, including all of these different entity types. So let's cover all of these buttons right now as quick as we can. Here we go. In Fusion, go to create sketch, and you'll need to pick a plane. Now we're sketching, and the way that we know that we're in a sketch is this sketch toolbar is highlighted, the sketch entities show up, and then finish sketch is also showing. If we go up to rectangle, there's three to pick from, especially if you go down to the create menu, you'll see all three in the menu. I'm going to do the 2-point first. This is corner to corner so that you can align to other points, 2 points in space. But as I'm placing this, notice the dimensions. If I type in a number and hit tab on the keyboard, I now can place 2 dimensions. I have a fully defined finished sketch ready to go. So rectangles will save you time with constraints. Don't manually draw these lines if you know you want a rectangle. If you're concerned about symmetry, go up to the rectangle command. Over on the right, you can toggle between the different rectangles, or you can do the pull down. Choosing center rectangle, this one lets you use symmetry about a certain point, like the origin. I can hit the tab on the keyboard and put in my values, and I've got a centered rectangle. It also includes these diagonal construction lines, making it a little bit easier to align to. Let's say you wanted to align a rectangle to an angled line. Go find 3-point rectangle. Select the 2 points that you care about, and it will let you place that rectangle. It'll be aligned to this angled line. Now, when it comes to dimensions constraints, there is a way to automate this and save yourself time. You do need to have the paid version of Fusion. Simply click it, and then it will wake up some options over on the right. You can toggle through the different alternatives. In this case, it's giving me 5 constraints and 11 dimensions. I can hit generate more. It's going to give me more options. It is trying to add any constraints that are logical and the right dimensions based on what we select. One tip for this, if you know that something needs a constraint, I know this should be vertical, go ahead and add that ahead of time. If I know that this dimension is very important to me, that must be 95. Go ahead and put all those important things in first and then hit automate. And now you're going to save yourself some time and guesswork by already having the critical dimensions and constraints that you want. Hit generate, pick the one you want, click OK, and now you've got a fully defined sketch. One incredibly simple thing that you need to get really good at in Fusion is the line command. This allows you to place lines in space, and as you're clicking, there is this thing called chaining, and that's basically placing more entities as you go. In order to stop, you can simply hit escape on the keyboard or this green checkbox. Both will stop you, or you can go up and choose a new sketch entity, like circle, and that will stop. You'll notice that when you are sketching a line, it's automatically allowing you to place a length value. Type in that length, hit tab. You can also apply an angled value here. And so you've got a dimensioned line with these 2 dimensions already applied. When you're sketching, if you'd like to add a tangent arc automatically, simply click and hold with your left mouse clicker, and you can place an arc that has tangency from this line. Now, if you fight with this shortcut, don't worry, a lot of people do. Just simply go up to the arc command and find tangent arc, and you can do it without having to mess with the shortcut. When it comes to sketching and lines in Fusion, one thing that Fusion really wants or likes by default is closed profiles. This is not closed, and so when I hit extrude, E for extrude, it does not want to extrude this. But if these sketches are in a closed profile, they overlap, this is now closed. This will extrude no problem. Even though we have some little leftover lines there, that's not going to hurt anything. There's an alternative to this. If you know that you want to add thickness to these lines, simply hit extrude, go to the dialog and find thin extrude. It will add thickness to all your lines, giving you an extrude where it's applying the thickness to your open sketch. One of the really important, powerful thing you can do with the line command is troubleshooting. I have a sketch, I hit extrude, nothing's happening because there's a problem with the sketch. When it won't just naturally or obviously extrude, there's probably something missing. Use the line command. I'm going to just sketch a line, and the blue profile that automatically woke up, this section is fine. There's a problem over here. I like to do a couple lines. You can do as many as you like. And these lines will help show you where the problem is. So if I drag them, it's highlighting or showing me that down here in the bottom left, there's a problem. So as I zoom in here, I realize, I failed to connect my endpoints. So now if I select both and hit coincident, they now connect at their endpoints. I can get rid of these lines, and now I have an improved, finished, good sketch ready to go. I'm a huge fan of using Fillet and Chamfer at the solid level. It's easier to control. It's adding a feature that you can suppress or delete or edit easily with a dialog. I think that's a best practice to use Fillet, Chamfer at the solid level. That being said, you absolutely can use the sketch fillet. If for any reason it just makes more sense to you in your design, you're trying to design this as fast as possible for a 3D print, or you're going to maybe sweep or loft this complex profile, sometimes it just makes sense to add fillets at the sketch level. When you click a point, it will add that fillet. When you click the line and the other adjoining line, it will add that fillet for you. One little tip, fillets can be done on two lines that are not connected. So even though these aren't touching, I can use the fillet command and select both, and it will solve between them. And very similarly, next to fillet, you'll find the chamfer, and this lets you do squared off edges. There's three options in the chamfer command. I'll select a point. This is equal distance, meaning it's controlled with one value. If we go back to the chamfer and choose the distance angle or two distance, these are effectively the same thing. They let you apply two variables to your chamfer. In this case, it's an angle and a distance. If we come over and do another chamfer and do the two distance this time, I'm going to select this corner. It lets me control with two distance handles to get exactly the chamfer that I want. In Fusion, it doesn't hurt anything to have multiple open profiles. At least you still can extrude and you still can do what you want. In this case, if I have these circles, I still can come in and select what I want when I'm extruding. I can choose to just do this interior region, extrude it, and it'll be okay. Now it might be a little confusing for me when I go to edit it later, and therefore cleaning it up might be a good idea. So let's talk about how we can do that. When I right click and edit the sketch, I'm going to go to T for trim or the scissors right here. And when I hover, it's going to tell me what it's going to get rid of. I'll click and that goes away. I'll find this. You see the red that highlights here, click and it goes away. This is the slower, more methodical method. The alternative is if you click and hold, it shows up this little blue box. And now when I hover and drive it over what I don't want, this kind of trims it away much faster, but it's easier to get rid of things, so you might accidentally drive over things you don't want. What if you want to create symmetry or a direct copy of something across a specific line? So I want all of this copied across this line or mirrored. I'll go up to the mirror command and I'll select everything and I'll choose the mirror line as this bottom line. It recreates this across that line, creating a mirrored instance, and it adds these little symmetry icons showing that no matter what, if you change one side, it's created a symmetric relationship to where it continues to change. Now, don't forget that if you were to create a line off in space and mirror both of these across this line, we'll get this distance between this object. So you don't have to mirror on top of each other. Instead, I can click this line. I can just do a solid line, or I can go over and choose center line. That's a little bit smarter that Fusion now knows you'll probably want to mirror across this. If I hit mirror, it automatically recognizes the line. And now if I select these entities, it'll mirror them across that. the distance from here to here is going to be the same on both sides. In Fusion, you have the ability to sketch circles, and there are 5 circles to pick from. They're all just slightly different where it comes to what you care about in the placement. If you know you need to have it centered about a point or somewhere on your design, like the origin, click, drag, and then hit Tab on the keyboard, and you can fill in the value for the circle. It automatically gets that diameter. When it comes to aligning to a specific line, where you have 2 points that you care about, that's where the next option of 2-point circle is great. Simply select the 2 points, it will connect to those. And now if you wanted to hit all 3 points in this design, where you've got the 2 from the line and the origin, you click all 3, it will align to those 3. Sometimes you want to have a circle rest up against something. So in this case, I want this arc to be resting on this point at one point in space. That's tangency. Same thing goes for this line to this circle. There's one point where it runs through. Now, you don't have to do this after the fact with a constraint. Instead, go to the circle command and choose one of the 2 options. The to tangent, where you have 2 lines or entities. Select both, it lets you place that. If you had 3 lines that you cared about, go to Circle, 3 Tangent Circle, select these 3 entities, and it'll place that line, adding that tangency. Sometimes when you're sketching in Fusion, you want to complete the sketch without having to guess. You can go up to Modify and choose Extend. This will continue that same geometry until it connects to the next thing. Now, one thing that's interesting that surprised me was if I have this shooting off into space, I would think that they don't terminate on each other. But the way Fusion does it is it allows for, if this theoretically could be extended, then it will allow that. If extended would terminate on each other. So I'll click both and it allows me to extend into each other. In Fusion, if you had a line and the full segment's 1300, but you want to break this up, you can simply sketch a line over it. And now if I go up to Modify and choose Break, now when I hover over this, you can see this line selected and a red X. If I click, it accepts the X. It now split this into 2 segments. And so now I can actually dimension just this line, making it a little longer, a little shorter, whatever, and you can break this up. Let's do one more. We sketch a line across these rectangles. If I were to use the break command, I can now have multiple entities that all behave differently. Make sure it's selecting the line you care about, which in my case is the horizontal. That's the one, the darker blue. I'll click it. And then if I hover over it again, right click, repeat break, and looks like it's broken, and this one break. Now I have the ability to separate the way these behave. This can go up, changing the angle of this line. This one can drop down. This one can be at an angle. Even though this was one flat line just a few seconds ago, we broke it up into segments. Just like circles, you can create arcs, and there's 3 options in Fusion. 3-point arc is one I use the most. I click the 2 endpoints, and it lets me place the desired radius. This gives you the most control when it comes to an arc. If we then kind of transitioned into a line and we want this line, whatever comes off of it, to smoothly transition into another arc, that's where the tangent arc is really nice. It's going to place an arc coming out of it, but you can see it's limited in how I can control it, and it's automatically adding this tangency constraint to the arc and line. Finally, the center point arc is kind of like it sounds. If I needed to be referencing off of this center as my center point, I click and then I hover out where my arc will start in space. Click there, and now it lets me drag to where I could create an entire arc or a partial arc, and it lets me even type in the angle of our arc. But it's all referencing off a concentric relationship for this center point. If you want to create a slot in Fusion, my first tip would be definitely use the slot command, because you don't have to manually draw it with lines and arcs. Now, once you know that, you need to understand that they all give you some different options in how you place it. First, the center to center slot lets you select 2 points. These are the center points of these arcs for the slot. And now we can come in and place dimensions. If these 2 lines were really important and I find my slot command, I can do the overall slot. And that's where I could select these 2 lines and it'll let me place an overall slot that matches that. If I need it to be horizontal, I'll just simply select this construction line and hit horizontal. It'll now realign itself so it's running nice and flat. The center point slot is kind of similar in that it's really about a midpoint that you care about. So you are starting from the middle of your slot. That's where I selected the origin, and then over on the right. So it's just allowing me to place the very center of our slot and then place the distance. If you'd like to include curvature, the 3-point arc slot is great for this, where you can introduce this curvature by, it basically lets you place an arc in space and then you drag out to create the width. Very similarly, this one is based on a center point. So if I click this center point, come down and hover, it lets me place this arc in space with this center point as our constraint for driving where this started, and then you can place the rest of the arc by dragging it out. When it comes to placing circles, definitely use the circle command, and the same thing goes for ellipse. If you need an elliptical shape, definitely use the ellipse command. So come down to ellipse, you're going to click the center, you're going to drag out to place an endpoint, and then you can drag down to place this height. So I can also, whenever you see that dimension dialog, you can type in the value and define it. If you want to create the top of a hex bolt or any other polygon, go to Polygon, and then there's these 3 options on how you place it. This one is letting you effectively place a circle in space, and you'll have an inscribed polygon. You see that 6 there? If you put in an 8, it's going to change to 8-sided, making an octagon. If I go to this value, this is that radius value of 100. Click that, and now we've got it placed. I can select one side and make it horizontal. It is intelligent in that all the sides will remain equal so that it can stay a polygon. The other 2 options, I did a circumscribed circle, and now we're going to do an inscribed, where it's effectively the outer circle for your design. And of course, the same thing applies. We can control the number of sides and the distance. When I go to Edge Polygon, this lets me sketch one edge. So I sketch this line in space, then drag it over a little bit, and then type in how many sides do I want, and click OK. You effectively sketch how big one side is and where it sits in space, and then it lets you extrapolate the rest. Now that we have this, we can extrude it and then finish off our hex bolt. When you're sketching in Fusion, if you don't have it constrained to an object like the origin or to something that's connected to the origin, it will let you move it around. And when you go up and find the move copy command in the sketch, I can select everything and I can move this around. This only works because this is not fully constrained. As soon as this is constrained to the origin, or as soon as it's constrained to other things, then Fusion's not going to let you move it. This is a fully defined sketch, meaning nothing is going to move. So when I hit move and I select everything and try to drag this, nothing happens. I wish Fusion would give us more information. I wish there was a better dialogue. I wish. But here's the workaround for you. If you want to move this and you need this shape, you just need to move it a little bit. Go to move copy like we were just in. Choose the objects. But before you do anything, be careful to come over and choose create copy. This will let you create this copy off in space or move it a little bit, and now you can place it. If it's grayed out, just try again, do another move copy. And now I can either select everything and make it for construction as a reference, or I could select everything, hit delete on the keyboard, get rid of it. Totally up to you on where you want to do with the original. But in this case, now I can add the important dimensions that I need to get this located. Sometimes your sketch is going to be completely off by a little bit. So in this case, this is a really easy sketch to work with. And we want to scale this up. We can choose scale or sketch scale. This will let me sketch the entire scale. I select everything. I want to anchor it about this point. Now, when I do this, the bummer is that it scales it up by 1.7. It's like I multiplied everything by 1.7. Here's the challenge. The dimensions go away. No big deal on a little rectangle, but when you have a complex sketch that you've done a lot of work on, the sketch scale is only going to ruin everything, right? In another video, I provide a method where with parameters, you can go in and make a small change to all of them with a scale factor, but keep everything intact, including your original dimensions. I'll link that. But if that doesn't matter to you, just go ahead and hit sketch scale, select all the entities you want to scale, select the point at which it's changing about, and I can scale this up or down. Oh, and by the way, one of my favorite preferences is over under preferences. Select the little name bubble, choose preferences, go to design, make sure that scale entire sketch off first dimension is available or checked. What this does is now when I place this dimension, even though I drew it at 17, I meant to draw it at 170. I'm way off, right? But the shape is right. So now when I type in 170 for my first dimension, the whole thing rescales off of that. When it comes to patterning holes and other features, like I want to pattern this tab or this hole, I would use the tool under Create Pattern. I love these. I use these all the time. The one I don't use very often is Sketch Patterns. If you need to do just a few sketch instances, the sketch pattern could be helpful. I would just be very cautious of it. If you're going to do a lot of them, that's where you're going to start to really feel the computation time happening. So I've sketched a circle. In my sketch, I'll look for pattern under the S key. In the search box, I'll find the rectangular pattern. The ones that are lighter and smaller, if you look at the two icons, the one that is not filled in, that's the sketch. This is the sketch circular pattern. This is the solid. So I'll choose rectangular. The object is this circle, and I want to go at this distance here to the right, and I want to bring some down. Over in the dialog on the right is where I can control, do I want to control the total extent of what it covers? This is the 37 millimeters total. Or do I want to instead do spacing? From center to center, I want it to be 18 between each one. And for this one, I want it to drop down 19 between each series of instances. You can control these, click OK when you're ready. Suppression lets you choose and get rid of certain instances. So I could say I didn't want the middle and I didn't want that one. Always change your mind. You can click it and bring it back. Click OK. If you need to edit this, go find the icon for patterns. Double click on it. It'll wake up the dialog again, and now you can make changes to it. What if we wanted to add a tab or a hole in a circular fashion? We want a few of these. So if I sketch this circle and I now want to bring it around, I can now do circular pattern for the sketch. We're going to choose this circle that we're going to pattern, and the center point being right here, it's going to pattern these, and we'll do as many as we want. The quantity does include the original, and you can set it to go around 360 degrees or a partial like 180. Click OK, and now we have a patterned set of circles. Again, if you want to change any of these, click on the little pattern icon, double click, it'll bring you back into the dialog. If you'd like to have more organic curves, you can use what's called a spline. And the one that you're probably going to use the most often is the fit point spline. It lets you create Hey, in Fusion, if you ever go up to the sketch menu, you'll notice all these different commands. And if you do the pull downs, there's even more, including all of these different entity types. So let's cover all of these buttons right now as quick as we can. Here we go. Curve based off of control points. As I'm placing this third point, there's going to be a curve that we can then control based on these points. Now, here's one of the big gotchas of the spline. If you hit escape, like most things in Fusion, an escape will let you finish the command, but in the spline, it cancels it. So you're going to want to hit this green check mark or hit enter on the keyboard. I really wish that it matched everything else, but that's just how it works. So that placed the spline. If I click on the spline, I have these handles, and these handles let me control how it's solving coming into the point. So if I was trying to transition into maybe a flat edge, like this rectangle, I'd like to control how the handle comes in from depth perspective, but also that if I want it coming kind of straight in, I can select the handle and make it horizontal so that it has a smoother transition into this other sketch entity. If you wanted to create a copy or reverse engineer something, it's common to bring this in as a canvas. So I'm going to start a sketch, do a search for canvas. It's going to let me insert something directly from my computer, this hook. I'm placing it on this plane, and now I can scale this up how I want this to be. I can even flip it around or rotate it. Once I have it to the size I want or close, I can always go back to the canvas, right click and do calibrate. And this calibrate lets you kind of set an overall value. So if I know this height to be 25, or I know, from here to here is 3 millimeters, whatever distance you might know, put that in, it resizes this, and now we can use this as a guide. So now that I have this canvas, I can come up and use the spline, and I can come and effectively trace it. And the closer I get, the more control points I do, I can get this really snug. Now, a word of advice, try to do as few control points as you can. This will make the sketch solve a little easier, and it'll make working with it a little bit easier. You can come back to the sketch, you can right click and do insert a fit point, spline point, and this lets you insert more control points if you need to, let's say, tighten up this area where it's, coming in right here. The other spline to be aware of is the control point spline. This one is allowing you to place kind of some points in space, and you can see that your spline is not even touching those points. It's just kind of following this as a guide. So it's going to create for a little bit smoother curvature overall, but a little less control in that you're not placing each point directly of the spline. In Fusion, if you'd like to include text, maybe for a 3D print or for just some design guidance, you can use the text command. It basically first asks you to place a dialog box or control box. I click and drag. This is now my control box, and I can put in the text that I want. You can come in and control the height with the dialogues here. If you double click, it'll take you back into the instructions, and you can choose from a series of fonts from the dialog. You can, introduce, you can make it bold, you can add italics, you can flip alignment. This is all standard default controls. I can even rotate where this goes, or we can create a line for it to follow. If you pre-select a line and choose to go to text, it will place the text automatically on the line. And then we can flip it over on the placement, and you can toggle the placement and flip to get this how you want, or even change the alignment to the center. If you'd like for it to follow a curve, very similarly, if I click enter, I can go to the text command and choose this arc with text on path. I'll select it, and then we can put in our value and now adjust the dialog to get this exactly where you want it, as well as even playing with the height to get what you need. In Fusion, under Modify, Offset, this tool will let you create geometry inwards or outwards. It's useful for things like wall thickness or when you have concentric shapes. When you first hit Offset, over in the dialog, you first can select your curves. The chain selection will try to grab everything around the perimeter of your sketch if possible. When I click on this, it's grabbing everything because of the chain selection. If for some reason you only want to do one line, turn off chain selection, select it, and then you can create this offset. If I drag it inside of my sketch and click enter on the keyboard, we're going to get this diameter. We're going to get this dimension that's controllable. So I can make this -3. It will adjust that full offset. When you look at this sketch, you'll notice this little tiny icon that looks sort of like an offset. This is how you can bring that dialog back up. In the offset, you do have the ability to do both inside and outside all at once. As I drag it, you can see it solving to both, and you do have the ability to do two sides. If you want these dimensions to be identical, choose link offsets. If you don't, simply click and accept the value. You'll notice the two dimensions now pop up. These are now editable, or you can now make this a slightly different value from the other. Flip will simply toggle between the two different options that you have. Let's talk about match topology. Basically, when you drag your offset values, it's possible to create a solution that doesn't look anything like your original design. You can make it more conservative with this match. Click it, and now it's going to try to preserve that shape. And if we're going out, it's going to try to preserve that shape. Once it starts to violate it, it will give you an error. Now, an important thing, if you ever want to do an offset of an offset, you need to make sure that this is checked for your first offset. Once I do this, now if I do another offset and choose this outer perimeter, even though this was effectively a copy or an offset, because we used match topology originally, this will allow you to do multiple offsets if you want to. Hey, and thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.